queen versus a lone pawn. It should be a win, but what if I tell you it's actually not that easy? Sometimes the pawn can even help its own. Today, we're going to go through every situation that is possible in this type of endgame. And we're going to learn how to play them absolutely perfectly like a grandmaster. So let's get into it. Let's start with the basics. If you got this position, we are playing with the white pieces. And we are trying to make a queen, but our opponent also is trying to make a new queen. We are a tiny bit faster, but his pawn is only one square from promotion. And here we got to the topic of the day. Queen versus pawn on the 7th. Now, there is a technique here called the zigzag. What does that mean? Well, of course, white has to give checks, because otherwise black will just promote. So we start giving checks. And we give them in a zigzag manner. We are going to close in like this, the king. Now, he's still here. The idea of white is to force black to put his king in front of the pawn. Why? Because then he wouldn't be able to push it. So, here there's a very good move. Queen to d3, attacking the pawn. Now, he has to defend it with the king here. And now we get this check in, queen c3. He's forced in front of his pawn. If he goes here, of course, you just take the pawn. So he has to go here, and now the king can approach. You just approach with the king. He gets out, and again, we start harassing the black king. In this case, we pin the pawn. There are many other ways you can give checks, but this is a easier way in this case. King here, check. Again, queen here, queen here. With these zigzag checks, you are slowly going to get him in front of the pawn. And now the king can approach again. Again, give checks. Needs to stay in front of the pawn. The king has come close. And now you win the pawn and deliver checkmate. And that is how you win this position, with these checks in a zigzag. And then every single time you forced him in the front of the pawn, the king just comes closer. And you repeat this step again and again and again and again until you reach with your king his pawn and win the game. And that's it. Easy, right? Well, it's not that easy, because here we have another situation. We make a queen and he's again one step away from promoting. But this time it's an a pawn. Now, with a and h pawns, it's not that easy. In this case, it's actually a draw. Black can manage to draw this game. Why? Well, you again give these zigzag checks. Same technique. But now, when you give this check, when he gets in front of the pawn, because he's forced to again, you cannot move the king. If you play king here, it's just stalemate. The king has no squares. He cannot get out of the board. So you gotta play something like this, and as long as he stays close to his pawn, there's no way to win this game, because the king is way too far and it's always gonna end in a stalemate. Now, you can win this position if the king is in this box. And let me show you why. Well, you give checks, again, zigzag, and here, when you got to this position, cutting his king, now you can approach with the king, allowing him to make a new queen, and king gets to the b3 square, or g3 if it would be on the other side of the board. And here, black cannot avoid checkmate. This queen is useless. There's nowhere to go. Queen to d1 or queen c2 or whatever is going to be checkmate. Now, there is one trick black can try here, queen c3 check, and of course, you take with the king, and then checkmate, because here if you take with a queen, well, you just made a huge blunder and stalemated him. There is one more special case. Of course, chess is never that easy. With the c and f pawns. Why? Well, again, you start going with the zigzag. Checks, attack the pawn, check. You will get closer to his king. And now again, same idea, queen c3, attacking the pawn, he has to defend it, queen b3. And now he has the move king a1. He's not forced to go in front of the pawn, he can go here. And I think you already see why, because if you take the pawn, it's just stalemate. So again, if you cannot take the pawn, if you cannot approach with the king, because he's just going to promote, there's no way forward. It's just a draw. At some point you have to take the pawn and stalemate. He saves the day. That's why with c pawn and f pawns, it's actually not that easy. But again, there is actually a way to win if the king is inside this box. Now, there is a little thing here called the right side of the pawn. This king now, it's on the right side. The right side is when the king is closer to the edge. If the king would be here, this would be the wrong side of the pawn. And I'll show you why this matters a lot. When the king is here on the right side, the box is like this, right? And let's see why this is the case. Again, you give checks, you will get closer, and the idea is to get your queen to d2. How do we do that? Now we can pin the pawn, just to go here, queen d2, and we got this position, and now the king can just simply approach. Easy. If the king has to b3, it's a win because he cannot make a queen, because this is checkmate. Of course, he could make a knight, but that's just prolonging the game for one more move. King here, and next move you win the knight. Now you may be wondering why with the king this close to the pawn, actually it's very close, it's not a win, it's still a draw. Well, let's see. You give these checks, you go zigzag, you can get very fast close to the pawn because the king is also close and it supports the square. King here. Now you cannot approach with the king because you're just gonna make a queen with check. You cannot do anything. You have to try here a little trick. Now, queen here. There is a very nice trick here. If he plays king b1, which is very natural, there is this move now. After he makes a queen, this move. And he can never stop checkmate. You are winning again. If he moves with the queen away, then the mate is here. Again, with this queen being so passive, you actually win the game, although it's queen versus queen. However, it's a draw because here he has the move king to a1, which he can actually miss if he's not very experienced. Why? Because now king c2 doesn't work because it's check, and after king b3, you can give a check with the queen, and again, the queen can just check, and you will never get to checkmate, although it looks like you're close to it, but you can never checkmate. And now, what did I tell you before about the king being on the wrong side? Well, with the king on the wrong side, look at how big this box got. White can actually win in many more ways, just because the king is not here and it's here. Well, why is that? Because now you can give this check, of course, the same zigzag will happen wherever the queen would be. And you can force him to go in front of the pawn once, because now he cannot go this way. Because then you take, it's no more stalemate. He has to go in front of the pawn. Although it's an f pawn, he has to go in front of it. And now the king can come one step closer, and we got to the previous situation where, although the king is on the right side, our king has got to this smaller box, and we are winning. With the same technique, checkmate. Now, why is it winning if the king is this far away as well? Because remember, this is still in the box. It's actually still winning. But why? Because the king is on the wrong side. Now you can give this check. This check. He gets in front of the pawn. Now, this is a crucial moment. You don't come closer with the king because then he will get out. And look, this is the box in which our king has to be, and he's not. So this is actually a draw. You cannot win this one. However, you can play queen here, blocking the escape route for this king, forcing him back to the wrong side. If he goes out here, he just self-sprint himself and you can come closer with the king. There's no need to play this. So he has to play king to d1. And why is it winning with the king here? Because you can play king f3 in this case. And when he makes a new queen, this is checkmate. You're controlling this square with the king. That is why if the king is on one of these squares, with his king on the wrong side, you can always control this key square. Of course, here he could make a knight, but again, you're just prolonging the game for some more moves. I mean, there's no way he's going to hold this position. White is just simply winning. Here I prepared some bonus positions. Again, there is a c pawn, so guys, it's not that easy to win. However, this king is not yet on either of these squares. So white here has a very nice move. Queen h6, blocking the diagonal, and now the king cannot approach. Now for king here, wherever we get our queen in front of the lone pawn, it's an easy win. The king will just simply come and help the queen to gobble up this pawn. It's an easy win. And another bonus position, look at this. There is a king in front of the pawn, but we cannot approach really because it would be stalemate. And being an a pawn, the king should be in this box in order to win. However, we can actually get to that box with the move king to b6. We are blocking the queen's path, so it's not stalemate. He has to get out. And now we got a king in the box, and this will be the standard way of winning the game, coming close to his king with zigzags. And now when we get to this position with the queen onto d2, we can approach the king because after he makes a queen, king gets to b3, checkmate is unstoppable because of his very, very bad queen. Of course, guys, here, never take with the queen, take with the king, and it's checkmate. So that's it. Now, with these techniques, you can play these endgames just like a grandmaster. If you found this video helpful, leave a like, maybe drop a comment or something, and subscribe if you want to see more endgames like this being presented to you in the near future. Until then,